Good day, everyone. Happy New Year. Hope everyone is doing well today. I have a short message for you, midweek message for you today. The title of the message is New Year, New Me. So, like I said, Happy New Year. We're in 2021. As everyone, as you've seen so many memes and conversations about it, 2020 was quite the year. Every year, I like to do a recap at church during our New Year's service about all the big major events that happened the previous year. And then I go into how, a lot of churches will have, catchy slogans for the next year. And, the catchy slogan won't change anything. Like 2020 was a rough year for a lot of people. And for a lot of people, it was a great year. Um, but it had nothing to do with the date. It had everything to do with other events, repercussions, or choices, or decisions, or things that you already put in motion. So just because the calendar changed over to January doesn't mean your life's good. The problems of 2020 are over. You know, when the clock struck 12, we were still in a pandemic. We still had the same sort of issues that people had. Or if you had great things going on, those great things don't have an expiration date of January 1st. So it's very key things, but people, that's an old saying that people used to use all the time, New Year, New Me, and New Year resolutions and things like that. So I'm going to look at that towards the end, but just want to talk about some things again, because I didn't do it, because church was different this year. We didn't have the same sort of program we usually do. It was just prayer going into the new year and prophesying about our futures and what God is saying to us. So wanted to bring that to you guys. So the year started off like any other year. Rather, 2020 was a good or bad year for you, you're definitely going to remember it for the years to come. I like the memes where they talk when someone asks you 20 years from now about 2020, you're like, oh man, where do I start? uh, it started off and there were wildfires in Australia. You know, there's fires all the time that break out. Later on there were fires in California that were really big. Like the sky was red. It looked like a scene from an apocalyptic movie. But with fires happen, we don't. It doesn't really get the same sort of national or news attention buzz and things like that. Then there were wild locusts in Africa, like swarms of locusts. But the thing with Africa, whenever news comes out of Africa, something bad happening, we're just like, it's Africa. Of course, something's crazy gonna happen. Not saying that that's a true thing. I'm telling you what our minds do because we don't really seem to put too much stock into that. Then they impeached the president, which just seemed like a waste of time and a waste of taxpayer dollars because it was, and you guys know me, I'm apolitical. But for what the president got impeached for, it was kind of weird that that's the thing they would choose over any of the other things that they could have chosen. And then so they impeach him, but then nothing happens, and people, again, this 2020 showed us that people didn't pay attention in social studies class, and I'm not trying to say that arrogantly, just saying that factually. People were like, well, he's impeached. Why is he still in office? But just because you impeach a president doesn't mean that you're going to remove a president. Bill Clinton was impeached. He stayed in office, finished out his term. uh, then, and also the money that that was spent on all these court cases the government does. That's the real scam. People want to talk about pastors and the money that they have. We should look at the money that gets wasted through our government. Then somber thing happened. Kobe Bryant and his daughter died, and about 8 other people on a helicopter on the way to a basketball game. And that hit a lot of people pretty hard because that was a person that a lot of people grew up with. Um, that was one of their heroes. That was the guy that people looked to. A lot of people love basketball, and a lot of people love basketball because of Kobe Bryant and what he could do on the court and how he carried himself. People loved that mentality, that Mamba mentality that he would say. And the and that it wasn't. I was respected of Kobe's game. Thought that he was one of the greatest to ever play. The reason why his death hit me hard is because he I remember an interview he had. I think it was the year he retired or right after, and he was talking about how his wife always understood that he was going to dedicate all his time and energy into becoming a great basketball player. And he said, when I retire, I'm going to be a family man. I'm going to spend all the time that I can with my daughters. Not saying he didn't spend any time at all before, but him and his wife had an understanding. I'm going to be in the gym. I'm going to be working on my game. I'm going to be doing all this. And then, and a lot of people say that, a lot of sports players will say, after I retire, then I'm going to take care of my family. And a lot of them don't. They still go and get these other jobs because they miss that income. So they go and get other jobs that pull them away from their family even more. And the thing that was so, I guess, cool about what Kobe Bryant did is, like, he literally became, as far as we could see, obviously we don't live with him, but as far as we could see, he became a great, like, father. Like, he's always with his daughter all the time. Like, a player as recognizable as he was, and then he becomes, this coach of his daughter. He's at all of his daughter's games, and, like, that was the most important thing to him. And that was unfortunate. And then you saw the other sides, because he was not a very social person when he was playing, especially in his prime. And then you saw how great he could be analyzing the game and all these different things. It's like, wow, this guy, we've been missing out on this other aspect. And so that hit a lot of people pretty hard, because, and then to die with your daughter, and then to leave, all these other children without him. Sign of things to come of the 2020 though. Then everything changed. We kept hearing about this coronavirus. I heard about it in China. Then it was in Europe, and it was really bad in Europe. And Italy was ravaged, and so many people were dying. And it didn't get to America. We're like, oh, it's fine. Then we had all these conspiracy theories about it, and there's still some of them are still going on. It was the 5G that they developed in China, even though in other countries that are ahead of us technology, they're past 5G. So that's all, but that's another topic for another day. And then there's like, well, black people can't get it because of our melanin protects us from the coronavirus, or this or that, and all these different things. And then we got the cases in America, and then and again, apolitical. Everyone tries to blame the president for not taking it seriously and not doing all these different things. But everybody missed it, regardless of Republican, Democrat, liberal, conservative, in between, other side. Everybody got it wrong because they didn't have the proper information. And even the doctors didn't have, the proper information because they were learning as it went. This led us to learn to add new words to our vocabulary, such as social distancing. I just dropped my daughter off at school, and there was a sign that said, remember to social distance. Essential worker. Some of us didn't know how essential our jobs were. We thought the world could function without us, but this showed us who we can survive with and who we can survive without. Zoom, that became a app that everybody used. Everyone has a Zoom meeting. Who was using that beforehand? But this 2020 also showed us that we're in the misinformation age, and it intensified. People were saying that the virus started from some dude eating a bat in China. The Democrats blamed Republicans for death, and Republicans blamed Democrats for death and for the economy. But again, in reality, everybody got it wrong. Nobody did the right thing. Now, of course, some people got it more wrong than others. But there was a time, that everyone loves to bring up when they talk about how the doctors don't know anything. They say, well, Anthony Fauci said don't wear a mask, months ago. And I'm not going to defend him. People, there's a reason why he said it. And they say masks don't help. Masks do help. It's the argument about all of that is very funny. I'm just going to say that. This isn't a political podcast or anything like that. But then the thing that started to happen that fed into the misinformation and fed into the conspiracies is that hospitals started fudging numbers for COVID deaths. And on both ends, people would fudge the numbers and say they died because of COVID, and then people would die because of COVID, and they would not say that it was that because of their political agendas. But people would have a heart attack, and they say, oh, that was a COVID heart attack. People would have a broken ankle. That was a COVID broken ankle. He wouldn't have broken his ankle if it wasn't for COVID. Now the hospitals They were doing this for money, not for some conspiracy theory. The government and insurances would pay out a lot more for COVID deaths in response to the pandemic. These hospitals did the same thing that many other businesses did. They took advantage of the relief money. I could go on and on, but I don't want to focus on COVID too much. The whole year, if you recap 2020 years from now, you can just say coronavirus, and that could be it. But there was a lot of other things that happened, but that is what took up the majority of our energy. You turn on any news station right now, in the corner, it's going to say COVID deaths worldwide or in America and all these different things, because that sucked up so much of our energy. But this year was really about misinformation. Then we went into quarantines. So many of us gained weight in quarantines because what else are you going to do? You can't go to the gym. You can't go do anything. You just sit at home and you're bored. All of us watch tons of Netflix and binged everything in the world. And then we ate because we were bored. You notice that there's less selfies being posted nowadays because not everyone is excited about the way they look. Then, while we were locked down, the murder of George Floyd occurred. The whole world watched because there was nothing else to watch. This led to numerous protests around the world. People in other countries were chanting, "Black Lives Matter." And countries, mind you, that have their own troubled past with race relations. There are some countries that treat their citizens horribly that are black. And then they said, "Oh, this guy, we saw a video of this guy died in America. Now we're going to change." It's like, well, why haven't you changed for all of the negative things that have happened in your own country? Then we had the Breonna Taylor murder, then more protests. And this led to more conspiracy theories for the coronavirus because they told people for weeks, you can't have a funeral. You can't gather. You can't go to your parents' house. You can't do any of these things. You must stay alone. They said you can't go to church. But you can go to a protest. Protesting is fine. You can't go to church, but you can go to the bar. So this led to people like, wait a second, you said we couldn't do all these things, and now it just led for more misinformation. We had so much division that occurred. And then through all of that, in the middle of all of that, then Chadwick Boseman died, which hit a lot of people hard because it was a character that people loved. I mean, Black Panther, the movie, is still to this day, and I don't see that record changing anytime soon with movies closed. It is the highest grossing superhero movie of a single superhero, because the Avengers movies made more, but the Avengers had everybody, and the Avengers had Black Panther in it. So, but the actual singular character superhero movie, it is the highest grossing film. And there were plenty of deaths that occurred, but I think that Kobe Bryant and Chadwick Boseman's deaths were the most impactful. Then the rise of information caused so much danger. We had so much division, and everything became political. Wearing a mask became a political statement. Then politics started to divide us even further. We had an election. Now, one candidate in this election said, don't vote by mail, vote in person. The other candidate pushed and pushed and pushed for people to vote by mail or to vote early so they could not be, because of the pandemic and you don't want to catch it from someone else. They said vote early, vote by mail, or go somewhere and go and cast your vote where it's not a huge crowd. So the guy that said vote by mail won the election. Now when you were watching this live, the guy that said vote in person was in the lead in certain states with early returns, because he said go vote on the day, on the November 3rd, go in person and vote. So he was in the lead in a lot of battleground states. But when they started counting the mail-in votes, the guy that said to vote by mail pulled ahead. Now I'm not saying that no one cheated. I don't know. It wasn't there. But people have been cheating in elections since they discovered how to do so. But it's no surprise that the majority of the mail-in votes were for the guy that said to vote by mail and not the guy that said don't vote by mail. Like, that's a natural thing that's going to happen. And if there was cheating, it was a great idea to do. Like, hey, this guy's saying don't vote in the mail. Let's just cheat and have all of these votes come in to, because everyone's going to believe that everyone that voted by mail voted for me. But even if whether it's cheating or not, that literally fits the narrative of what the two candidates were saying the entire time. We can't be surprised that this is what happened. This year has been something. Years later, when someone asked you, you would probably think of the coronavirus, the election, quarantines, and protests. But we are in 2021 now. But the thing is, the calendar holds no special power. Things are still political. There's still a pandemic going on. There's still people getting killed by the police, and there will be protests that happen. Your problems don't know that the year changed. So take away those global problems, those specific problems that are just for you. Don't go away. If you're in an abusive relationship or in a horrible relationship, or if you're struggling with your faith, just because the clock turned 2021 doesn't mean that those things go away. Those things are still there. We strive to make New Year resolutions or New Year, New Me. But if you have a problem, don't wait until January 1st to address it. Now, the gyms right now are going to, well, not full because they have capacity things, but there's a lot of new gym memberships and things like that. That's traditionally what happens in January. But then by March, things start to slow down and those memberships get canceled and things like that. But we can't have that same resolve in our lives that people do with those, I'm going to lose 20 pounds for the new year. The Bible says to examine ourselves. 2 Corinthians chapter 13 verse 5 says, examine yourselves to see whether you are in the faith, to test yourselves. Do you not realize that Christ Jesus is in you? Unless, of course, you fail the test. Christ is in us, regardless of the year, the pandemic, the president, the injustices that plague man. We need to look at what is in us that we don't like. We need to figure those things out, and then we need to weed them out. Anything that's not like you, Lord, get it out of me. Weeds don't allow things to grow. We need to weed those things out so that we can grow. We have weeds that are choking the life out of us. Whether that's a bad relationship or an unhealthy habit, we need to examine ourselves in this new year. And every day, and each new day, examine yourself and move towards the Lord and remove the things of the Lord. Hope you guys have a great day, a great week, and Happy New Year. I'll see you guys next week. Bye.